I put the kettle on the stove and glanced at the clock. 3:30. Just 30 more minutes of peace before Fablin came home with the kids. The house was quiet, too quiet. I took my favorite mug from the cupboard. The one with the faded blue roses. Albert gave it to me on our 20th wedding anniversary. That was 18 years ago. He died suddenly of a heart attack at work. We both worked at the tax office back then. I was 44. I never remarried, and never intended to. The kettle whistled, pulling me back to the present. I poured the boiling water over a bag of strong black tea and sat at the kitchen table. A neat stack of envelopes waited for me. Bills. A bank statement. Junk mail. I sorted through them like I always did. Electricity $120. Gas $83. Cable and internet $150, even though I only watch the news and old movies. The rest? For Fablin and the kids. The bank statement showed my pension had arrived $1. Sube. Of that, $800 went straight to the mortgage. 4 years ago, when Fablin divorced her husband and had nowhere to go with the children, we took out a loan together. She needed a co-signer. Her job as a mail carrier didn't qualify her for the kind of house she wanted. Just temporary, she said, until I get back on my feet. But she never did. And I've been carrying that weight ever since. I took a long sip of tea and looked out the window. Across the street, old Mr. Humphrey Bardwhistle was watering his tiny front lawn. He's 67. Lost his wife 2 years ago. Sometimes, I find myself watching him from the kitchen. Not because I'm nosy, it's just comforting to see someone else living a quiet life. A life with no drama. No shouting. No endless requests for help. That peaceful moment didn't last. The front door slammed open. My 14-year-old grandson, Denby, barreled in with his younger sister Lauren trailing behind. Both were chattering about a school history project. Good kids. But loud? Very loud. They'd inherited their mother's flair for turning every little thing into a performance. Grandma, Lauren shouted from the hallway. Do we have any cookies left in the jar? I nodded toward the shelf without saying a word. Fablin was the last to enter. Her uniform was wrinkled. Her ponytail messy. Her shoulders sagging with exhaustion. She looked older than 35. Mom, we need to talk, she said, sitting across from me. I felt that familiar tightness in my chest. When my daughter said those words, they only ever meant one thing. She needed money. Fablin didn't waste any time. Denby's laptop broke, she began. Her voice clipped and hurried. The repair guy said, it's toast. It'll cost more to fix than buy a new one. And without it, he can't submit any homework. Everything's digital now. I kept my eyes on my mug. The steam rising from the tea seemed more comforting than what was coming next. How much is a new one? I asked, trying to keep my voice calm. $800. That's the cheapest I could find, she said quickly. And Lauren's winter coat doesn't fit anymore. She needs a new one. That's around $200. Plus, she signed up for dance at school. The fee is $250. I didn't respond. I took a sip of tea, letting the numbers echo in my head. Babe, Lambe, 250. $250 in total, almost my entire pension. And that didn't even include the $800 mortgage or $350 in utilities I was already paying. Mom, are you listening? She asked, leaning in. I nodded slowly. These are necessary expenses, not luxuries, she added, as if defending a budget proposal. Feb, I said, gently setting down my mug. Where does your salary go? What do you mean? She frowned. Like I'd asked something ridiculous. I pay for groceries, gas, clothes for myself. A bunch of stuff. How much do you make after taxes? About $2. Sube. That's more than I get in pension. And I'm covering almost everything. Fabline sighed heavily. As if I just didn't get how the world works. Groceries. Clothes. Car insurance. Cell phones for the kids. Life is expensive. Mom. And yet I pay the utilities. The cable. The internet. The mortgage. I said quietly. Yeah. And thank you for that. She said, waving her hand like it wasn't a big deal, but the rest still adds up. I stood and walked to the window. Across the street. Humphrey was now sweeping his porch. Calm and methodical. Feb. I said without turning around. Last month. You needed $500 for the car. 3 weeks ago. It was $400 for school supplies. Before that, $600 for Lauren's medical bills. She hesitated. I don't do it on purpose. It just happens. No. It doesn't just happen. I said, turning to face her. It's every month. Between $400 and $1. Ling. On top of the bills I already pay. You can afford it, she snapped. You have a good pension and savings. My savings are mine. I said flatly. I'm your daughter. She said, her voice rising. Denby and Lauren are your grandchildren. In the living room. The kids were arguing over a video game. It was the soundtrack of a normal family life. A life that was quietly draining me. Then she asked the question that changed everything. How much do you have in your account? I looked at her. That's none of your business. I said, but she wasn't backing down. I need to know what I can count on. I can't live in this uncertainty anymore. Mom, I have 2 kids. And a full-time job. I reminded her. But it's not enough. Then maybe... I said, it's time you found a better one. Fablin shot up from her chair. A better job, easy for you to say. I'm 35. A divorced mom with 2 kids? Who's going to hire me for anything better than what I've got? I stayed seated. I'd heard these arguments before. Month after month. Same story. Just different dollar amounts. She sighed and dropped back into the chair across from me. Mom, this is the last time. I promise. Once the kids are older, I'll get a better job. I'll start paying you back. I swear. When the kids are older, I asked. Lauren is 9. Denby is 14. You're talking about at least 10 more years. No. No, maybe 3 or 4. She said weakly. In 3 or 4 years, you'll have bled me dry. I whispered. She didn't respond. The kitchen went silent. The only sound was the old wall clock ticking above the fridge. Then she said something that cut deep, cold, and sharp. Mom, I'm not asking for a yacht. I'm asking for a laptop for my son. A coat and dance lessons for my daughter. These are normal parenting expenses. You're the grandma. Yes, but we live in a house that's half yours and half mine. There it was. I felt my chest tighten. Half yours, I asked. Yes. She said. We signed the mortgage together. I made the down payment. I reminded her. $45,000. That came from my savings. But the loan is in both our names. She insisted. She stared at me. Exhausted but also unyielding. Mom, I'm tired. I'm tired of working like a dog. Raising kids by myself. Barely scraping by. Meanwhile, you're just sitting on your money. Counting every dollar. I stood so quickly my mug clattered against the saucer. Sorry. Sweetheart, I said, my voice low and cold. But I'm not dead yet. She rubbed her face with her hands. That's not what I meant. Yes, I said, walking past her. It is. I went to my bedroom and opened the closet. Pulled out the old suitcase I hadn't used in 5 years. I laid it on the bed and started packing 3 dresses. 1 warm sweater. Underwear. A nightgown. From the bathroom, toothbrush. Comb. My medications. I opened the nightstand drawer, took Albert's photo, and slipped it carefully into the suitcase. Fablin appeared at the doorway, arms crossed. What are you doing? I didn't answer. I took my passport, assurance document, and bank cards from the safe, closed the suitcase, and zipped it up. Mom. Stop. Let's talk about this. We already did. I said, you get the house. I get my freedom. I walked past her, grabbed my coat and purse. Lauren peeked out from the living room. Grandma, are you going somewhere? Just visiting, I said. As I stepped out the door, Fablin followed me to the gate. Mom, don't be ridiculous. Come back. I kept walking. She was shouting behind me. But I didn't look back. When I reached Humphrey Bardwistle's front yard, I paused. My suitcase felt heavier than it had 5 minutes ago. I stood at his gate, unsure. What would I even say? My daughter just kicked me out. Can I have a cup of tea? Ridiculous. But standing there with a suitcase in the street wasn't exactly dignified either. I took a deep breath and knocked. Humphrey opened the door slowly, wearing his usual plaid shirt and faded jeans. He looked at my suitcase, then up at me, eyes soft but concerned. Noelle, he said. Surprised. Something happened. Can I come in? I asked. Or is this a bad time? Of course, he said, stepping aside. Come in. He took my suitcase and led me into the living room. It was exactly how I imagined: modest, clean, lived in. 2 old armchairs faced the television. A bookshelf lined the wall, filled with detective novels and magazines. A few framed photos of his late wife, Martha, stood proudly on a shelf, smiling. Aging. Frozen in time. Have a seat, he said. Tea. Or something stronger. I've got brandy. Tea. Thank you. He disappeared into the kitchen. I sat down and looked around. Everything was tidy. Calm. The kind of home where no one was yelling. No one was asking for anything. Just quiet. Peaceful existence. The kettle whistled. The scent of loose-leaf tea filled the air. Real tea. Not bags. The kind my mother used to brew when I was a girl. Humphrey returned with a tray, 2 mugs. A sugar bowl. A small milk pitcher. Everything simple but thoughtful. Sugar milk, he asked. No. Thank you. We sipped in silence. But it wasn't uncomfortable. He didn't ask questions. Didn't pry. He just waited. Out the window, I could see my house. The lights were still on. Fablin was probably pacing around, trying to figure out where I'd gone. Maybe telling the kids I went on vacation. Maybe claiming I had lost my mind. Who knows? I'm having a conflict with my daughter. I finally said, yeah. Humphrey nodded. Heard some of it. Windows carry sound. I blushed. Sorry. Don't be. Happens to everyone, he said. Taking another sip? Is it about money? I looked at him, surprised. How did you know? Because that's what it's always about, he said. My son's the same way. Lives in California. Make six figures. Still calls for help with repairs or a vacation loan. His wife works too. But hey, why spend your own money when you've got an old man with a pension? I smiled bitterly. Familiar story. She demanded my entire pension. I said, told me I could keep $100 a month for personal expenses. Then she threatened to throw me out if I didn't agree. Humphrey set his mug down. No shock in his expression. Just understanding. What did you do? He asked. I left. He nodded. Good. He told me how, after Martha died, his son flew in not to grieve, but to ask about the house deed and savings accounts. So I stopped answering his calls unless it wasn't about money. He said. Funny how the calls slowed down. We sat there for a while, listening to the evening news from the next room. No shouting. No guilt. Just peace. Can I stay here tonight? I asked. Stay as long as you want. Humphrey said. I've got a guest room. Martha wanted it ready for visitors. We just never had any. And just like that, I found something I didn't expect, a place that felt like sanctuary. I lay awake in Humphrey's guest room that night. The silence broken only by the ticking of a small clock and the soft patter of rain on the window. It had been so long since I'd gone to bed without a heart weighed down by obligations. By morning, Humphrey was already in the kitchen, frying eggs in his bathrobe. Coffee or tea? He asked as I came downstairs. Coffee. Please. We ate in silence. But it was a warm silence, one that didn't demand anything of me. Through the kitchen window, I saw my house across the street. Lights on. Someone was awake. Probably Fablin. Or maybe she hadn't slept at all. They're looking for you. Humphrey said casually. Your daughter was out on the porch last night. This morning, I saw her drive off. Probably looking. I nodded. Of course she was. Not out of worry. But because the bills weren't going to pay themselves, I turned on my phone. 14 missed calls. 8 texts. The latest read, Mom. Where are you? I'm really worried. Please call me. At 8 a.m. The phone rang again. I answered. Mom, thank God. Where are you? She said. Voice strained. I'm in a safe place. I replied calmly. What does that mean? I just got a call from the bank. The mortgage payment didn't go through. Did something happen to your account? I sipped my coffee. No. I canceled the automatic payment. Silence. You did what I canceled it. You can't do that. We're co-signers, I can. It's my money. The bank confirmed it. But what about the mortgage? That's $800. Where am I supposed to get that? From your salary? You know I don't have that kind of room in my budget. You'll need to find it. Or sell something. Or borrow. Mom. Stop. This is insane. The electric company just called too, said the autopay was canceled. Yes. All of them were. Gas. Cable. Internet. If you want to manage the household, you'll need to do just that. Manage. I could hear her breathing fast. You have no right. I have every right. I cut in. It was never your money. Denby has homework due. And the internet is down. Lauren's asking where you are. What am I supposed to tell them? Tell them the truth. That their mother demanded her grandmother's pension and threatened her out of her own house? She started crying. Not manipulative tears. Real ones. Raw and shaken. Mom, I really don't know what to do. You'll figure it out. I only have $300 in my account. Then you'll need to make choices. Budget. Like adults do. What if I can't make it? Then you'll sell the house. Or downsize. Or learn. Silence. Then, are you really not coming back? I don't know yet. I said honestly. That depends. On what? On whether you're ready to respect what I bring to this family. I hung up. For the first time in decades, I felt something I hadn't in years: financial freedom and peace. Back at home, Fablin sat at the kitchen table, surrounded by bills, a calculator, and a blank stare. She had $320 in her account. The mortgage alone was $800. Add electricity, gas, internet, groceries, and she was staring at a $1.500 wall with no ladder in sight. Denby came downstairs, half asleep, already dressed for school. Mom, the internet's still not working. I need it for my assignment. Temporary issue, she said, trying to sound in control. We'll fix it today. He poured juice and left without another word. 10 minutes later, Lauren walked in with sleepy eyes and her cereal bowl. Mom, when's Grandma coming back? She promised to help with my animal project. Soon? Sweetheart. Fablein Lied. Did you two have a fight? The little girl asked. Fablein opened her mouth, but no words came. What could she say? That she tried to seize control of her mother's pension like it was a checking account? That she'd issued an ultimatum and lost? We just see things differently. She managed. Lauren accepted the answer without fully understanding. Children rarely do until it affects them directly. After they left for school, Fablin began making calls. First, the bank. Hi. I'm calling about my mortgage. I'm having temporary financial hardship and need a deferment. Unless it's due to job loss, illness, or a documented emergency, we can't grant deferment. The banker said politely. Would you like to apply for a short-term loan at 23% interest? Fablin did the math. The interest would bury her. No, I'll think about it. She tried her ex-husband next. Feb Roger sounded surprised. Is everything okay? I need a favor. Can you loan me $1,000? Just until next month. There was a long pause. I can give you $300, same as alimony. That's all I've got. We're preparing the nursery. Even friends were no help. Sarah could spare $100. Jen offered $50. Michelle didn't even answer. By lunch, the picture was clear. Fablin had no safety net. Friends were good for brunch, not bailouts. The kids came home grumpy and hungry. The internet still isn't fixed, Denby grumbled. How am I supposed to finish my report? Use the library, she muttered. Can I go to Jason's Fine? Lauren, meanwhile, took off her shoes and showed her mom the worn-out sneakers. Mom, my toes touch the front. Not today. Honey. But why? Because not today. She sat at the table again that night, calculator in hand. $400 salary after taxes. $400 for groceries. $150 for gas. $200 for clothes. $100 for school stuff. $200 for extras. That left $1. 350. But the mortgage was $800. Utilities, another $350. She was $200 short every single month. And, for the first time, she realized she had never noticed. Because Mom had always filled the gaps quietly, without complaint. And now, for the first time, she wasn't. A full week had passed since I left. 7 days in Humphrey's Kiat house. 7 days of shared breakfasts. Peaceful afternoons. And calm evenings. No slammed doors. No raised voices. No sudden asks for money. I'd grown used to the stillness, to the steady rhythm of a life, not centered around someone else's chaos. Every morning, we made eggs or oatmeal. In the afternoons, I helped in the garden or read from Humphrey's collection of old novels. At night, we'd watch the local news and talk about little things, politics, the weather, our neighbors. Nothing urgent, nothing demanding. But even from this side of the street, I could see my absence rippling through my old home. On day 3, I noticed Fablin at the kitchen table with a calculator and a notebook. Good. She was starting to look at the numbers. On day 5, she dragged 3 large trash bags to the curb clutter. Probably. Maybe things she'd once insisted we needed. On day 6, a man pulled up in a pickup and hauled away the oversized television and DVD player from the living room. They were making changes. Then, on Friday morning, as I sat sipping coffee and reading the paper, there was a soft knock on the front window. Lauren stood on the porch, her backpack slung over her shoulder, and a messy bouquet of dandelions clutched in her hand. I opened the door. "Grandma," she cried, throwing her arms around me. "It is you, Mom said you went to Aunt Emily's." "But we don't have an Aunt Emily," I smiled. "Come in." "Sweetheart." She walked in, wide-eyed, looking around. "You live here now." "For a little while," I said gently. "Mr. Humphrey is a friend. He's been kind to me." Lauren nodded solemnly. "Why did you leave?" I crouched to meet her eyes. "Your mom and I had a disagreement. Grown-up stuff. We just needed some space." She accepted the answer with a child's grace, but didn't stop asking. "When are you coming home?" "Denby misses you, even though he won't say it. And Mom cries sometimes. At night, she thinks I don't see her. But I do." My heart ached. "I miss you too. Baby, I'll see you very soon. In fact, can you tell your mom I'd like to talk tonight?" Around 8. Her face lit up. "She's baking apple pie, your favorite. She says if you come, we can all have dinner like we used to." "I'll come. But just to talk first." Grown up to grown up. Lauren handed me the bouquet. "These are for you. I picked them on my way to school." "Thank you, honey," I said, holding back tears. "They're beautiful." After she left, Humphrey placed the flowers in a glass of water. He glanced up from the newspaper and raised an eyebrow. "Sending the kid to negotiate." "Huh, classic family move?" I nodded slowly. She hit me right in the heart. He smiled. "Just remember, this isn't about punishing your daughter. It's about changing the way she sees you." I looked at the clock. In a few hours, I'd find out if that change had truly begun. At exactly 8:00 p.m., I stood on my own porch, suitcase in hand, and knocked on the door of the house I helped pay for, but hadn't set foot in for over a week. Fablin opened the door almost immediately. Her eyes were puffy. She looked exhausted, like someone who hadn't slept well in days. She wore old jeans and a faded t-shirt. No makeup. No bravado. Just her. "Mom," she whispered, voice trembling. "Thank you for coming. I wasn't sure you would. I promised Lauren." Inside, the smell of cinnamon and vanilla wrapped around me like a memory. The apple pie sat on the counter, just as promised. So did a plate of chocolate chip cookies, and a vase of wildflowers Lauren's touch. No doubt. Grandma Lauren squealed, running from the living room. She hugged me so tight I nearly lost my balance. "Mom made everything you love." Denby nodded from the couch. "Hey." "Grandma." "Hey." Kiddo. How's school? He shrugged. Fine. I guess. The internet's back. I'm glad to hear it. Mom said you're staying for dinner. Lauren beamed. Not yet. First. Your mom and I need to talk. We stepped into the kitchen. The pie waited patiently between us. She poured me tea into my favorite mug roses. Slightly chipped at the handle. How are you feeling? She asked. Peaceful. I replied. You tired? But clear. I wanted to say I'm sorry. Mom. For what I said. For what I did. I said nothing. I had no right to demand your pension. She continued. That money is yours. You worked for it. And I was wrong to threaten you, wrong to take everything you've given for granted. I nodded, letting her speak. I've spent the week looking at our finances. Selling things. Cutting costs. I canceled cable. I'm applying for a weekend job. I even made a budget. She pulled out a notebook, flipping to a page filled with numbers and scribbles. I didn't know how much life really costs. She said softly. Because you always caught what I didn't. I set my tea down and pulled a folded paper from my purse. I'm willing to come back. But under 5 conditions. She leaned forward. Eyes locked on mine. First. We make a monthly budget and stick to it. No surprises. Second. We open a joint household account $1. $200 from you. $0 from me. All shared expenses come from that. She nodded slowly. Third. On a purchase over. Stow. We decide together. Fourth. The kids get fixed allowances. No more random money requests. Fifth. We respect each other. No ultimatums. No guilt trips. Fablin was quiet for a long moment. Then she reached out and took my hand. I agree. To all of it. Good. Then I'll come back tomorrow morning. We stood and returned to the living room. Grandma's coming home. Lauren shouted. Yes. I said, looking at Fablin. But with new rules. And for the first time in a very long time, I felt like we were finally ready to live like a real family.